We are live with Frank Ungaro, and the last time Frank was here, I think I was trying to figure out how long it would take me to practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so I could just, take you down. Because lately, you don't even listen. When I'm joking about this, and you're so confident in your ability and my inability to take you down. You don't even flinch. You don't even look intimidated by that comment at all. But
I know, but if
pull the mic to you.
But if the ramifications are that we both end up on the floor, I don't you know what I mean?
We were talking about this as you got here. Remind me, first of all, the what level of black belt are you again?
I have a 3rd degree, so 3 stripes on my black belt.
3 stripes on the black belt. Yeah. Each stripe means that you've just been practicing for a long period of time, and then your instructor gives you another stripe.
Yeah, I mean they're
pull the mic in. It's like you've never done a podcast before. Pull the mic in, and don't hide behind the mic. Look, you're hiding behind the mic. There we go. There we go.
This new setup.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, no, I mean you get in jiu-jitsu, every belt gets 4 stripes as an adult. So when let's say you have your first, your white belt, generally you're 2 years at white belt, right? So 4 stripes, and then you get your next belt, and typically you get graded on how you're doing. At black belt, it's more becomes about teaching and the passage of time. So the first 3 stripes are given depending on what federation you follow. It doesn't have to be this way, but generally the first 3 stripes are given 3 years apart. So no longer every 4 to 6 months are you getting a stripe now. It's every 3 years, which is good because as a black belt, the stripe just reminds you about how old you are. So I don't really care about how high my rank is, really. There's a little bit of a law of diminishing returns there because when you get a lot of stripes on your black belt.
Are you practicing anymore? Are you constant in
all the time?
This is a way of life for you. Yeah.
I'll never stop.
Yeah, got it.
I'll never stop. Ask my doctor.
Yeah,
he hates my guts.
Yeah,
no, man.
Why? Because of injuries?
It's hard. I'm 48 now. This is my 27th year doing this.
You're looking good. 40. You got a lot of hair. You're good.
I'm hanging in there, but it's because of jiu-jitsu, right? I really believe that.
So if I did jiu-jitsu, I'd have more hair than I have now?
Maybe. I think that I have heard the theory that it increases your testosterone because it's a predator prey type thing. It's very visceral. It's very.
I had a naturopathic doctor tell me high testosterone means you lose your hair.
Oh.
Frank. So anyway, we'll go with your
side.
Naturopathic
doctor?
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Oh. Okay. Was that a little smirk at the end?
No. I'm just playing, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I know lots of guys that are.
What about your shoulders, your neck? How's the rest of the body?
Shoulders and neck are good. The probably. You know what? I'm in actually for the mileage. I'm in actually pretty good condition.
Yeah.
But you know what? I have a very good chiropractor. In Niagara Falls, Chris DeFazio, she's the best, and she's not just a chiropractor, but they have all sorts of therapeutic things like their shockwave therapy gun that they torture me with. But I mean, it's amazing what they're doing to keep me together is really good. So I'll hobble into their office, and a couple days later
I'll hobble in.
Well, you get injured, you know, like, and I'm bumps and slight pulls and things like that, and I'm not talking serious injuries, knock on wood. So far so good, and but you know what? Like it doesn't. You get older, and you still get 20-somethings come into the gym, right? And everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of guys want to see how they stack up because I think a lot of people come in thinking, the good news is now I have an army of different types of people, and they can take those. They can take those.
You have a gang.
For me. I have a giant, buddy. I tell you, man. Like we just promoted a bunch of purple belts, and purple is in my opinion, the hardest belt to get in any martial art. It's like the first level of expertise in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's tough. It's tough to get through blue belt, which is your first colored belt. And I remember when I started at the Gracie Academy in the late 90s, there was I think 2 purple belts in that school, right? So they were like the black belts because there was Hoyson, Hori, and Gracie were the only black belts in that building, right? And they had a couple brown belts. Richard Bresler, who I had on my podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and Lowell Anderson, 2 guys. And then the rest were, a couple purple belts here and there. So they were like the gods back in the day. They were like the warriors. They were the guys you were afraid of. And now we've got a gym just full of purples. And it's to see that here in Canada and to see that in a gym that I have is, man, it's like a dream every day.
Yeah, very fulfilling, I'm sure.
It's fulfilling in so many different ways. Just like bringing a kid in who maybe has issues with self-esteem or bullying and turning them into somebody who just walks in, with their head up, back straight, looking around at people. Like, just helping people transform, weight loss and stuff like that. It's unbelievable. It's very gratifying. And to create a community, there's a lot of, disagreements in society with people telling other people about, the plight of this race or the plight of this sex or what you should be doing and what you should be believing. But we've actually created a space where nobody talks about any of that stuff because everybody is just equal to, working to one end and helping each other. And no one ever says, well, that guy's, black or that guy's white or that guy's Hispanic or whatever. We don't see that. All we see is like brotherhood, sisterhood, and how can I help you get better? Let's push each other. We've got a task at hand. We've created that society that I think a lot of people like to preach that we actually did the hard work. And I actually did the hard work over decades and created something that's, I think, a microcosm of what all these idealists want the world to be. You know what? You know what the lesson is there? Get off your fucking ass and do it. Don't just sit on the internet and preach about what the way things should be. Get off your ass and do it. Create something. Create something the way that you are preaching you want the world to be. Get off your butt and create it. And that's what we did. And
where does that come from in you? You survived the COVID years of all the kind of, shutdown stuff. That for a studio, is it a studio? Gym?
Gym,
studio.
academy.
Academy.
I like to say academy.
Academy,
yeah.
for an academy like yours, that's got to be tough to go through. You survived that. Where does all this come from?
It was tough. Like the last 2-3 years, we've seen I've been on the show. I was on the show during the blood and guts of it, right? I was on the show.
I remember.
A year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we had a very lively talk before the microphones came on and very lively talks when the microphones shut off. But I mean, I think you can read between the lines. It was tough, but the way the gym rallied around the situation, I'm very careful about who I let into this program. You have to have a job. You can't be, you have to be a certain individual, like someone that I perceive to be of good intentions and good ambitions. So
you're using your intuition to kind of have new students come
100%.
into your academy?
I probably turn away 30-35%.
Come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know what, Tom? It paid off during COVID because we had a collectivity of people who were like-minded that understood the value of what we were doing in that
So
gym.
you'll maybe roll. Will somebody start, I don't know, is the proper language, rolling at the gym? You'll just know that they're not.
New people typically don't roll.
So it's new people you're turning away. I thought maybe some
new people.
Blue belt walks in from somewhere else or something. Okay, got it.
New people, yeah. No, I've got some very intentional questions I ask. We watch the way they do the lesson. I hear the questions they ask me, and based on that, it's yes or no. And sometimes it's no. A lot of times it's no. But it paid off because we had such an amazing group during COVID, and everybody just supported the gym. It hurt because, if you have the right model as a gym owner, you do things a specific way with your pricing. And a lot of the money that you make, the good times, are based on new student integration. It's really important to the economic model. If you don't bring in new students, you might be able to keep your lights on because you have support with your core group, but you're not going to prosper, right? So now we're back to prosperity, I hope, for the time being. Yeah. But then I look at the macro environment, and I know damn well what's coming, and so do you. Right? We know.
Yeah, we just had a big event where we had, it was about 850 people that we did an economic update. I think it was one of the darkest ones that I ever gave. And the feedback was good, though. The feedback was like, okay, that was pretty rough to listen to what's going on in the credit markets and what's happening with interest rates. But we needed to hear it. So thank you. So
a lot of people need to hear it.
I think so, too. But
I think a lot of people outside of the rock star, the rock star universe is pretty well informed. There are a lot of self-starters, people that are looking to do something, right? I had a text from a buddy of mine. We were talking yesterday, and he showed me a text from 2000. Him and a buddy of his were talking, and he said, creating all this money is a bad thing. And you could see his friend, to his merit, was very open-minded about the discussion. And but he's like, starting to connect the dots about money printing and inflation and what that's going to actually do. And of course, here we are 2 years later, and now we're starting to see the ramifications, and we're going to feel them. I'm looking behind you. I see the sovereign individual, right?
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Chapter 2 of that book is really cool because it talks of the fall of Rome. and it talks about how people didn't, like, nobody really knew Rome fell until the last emperor was escorted out in handcuffs, brought to his villa, surprisingly given a pension. Not shortly after that, he was murdered, but that's another talk for another time. But, you know, most people don't want to know about the bad change, and the messengers, i.e. media, aren't going to bring the real message forward because most people aren't educated enough to digest it, right? I think a lot of people are looking at what happened in other economic cycles and downturns and ups and downs. But I mean, I think the fact that, you know, a lot of the liquidity was zapped out of the market, but we're left with, I think, an unprecedented debt burden right now. And that's what scares the hell out of me. So I don't know. I wish I knew less so I could sleep better.
Yeah, it's kind of sometimes when you look at it, you know, you can't not see it once you've seen it.
Yeah.
You know, and once you've seen it, and you're right, I think it's when the debt gets that high. It's kind of like when these central bankers talk about, hey, we're just going to raise interest rates until inflation is killed. And I'm like, well, your interest rates don't live in a vacuum. If you have the U.S. just hit $31 trillion in debt.
Yep.
And if rates are going to go up to, they're at 3%, go up to 3%. They're already at 3%. If they're at 3.2%, 3%, I think, on 31 trillion is roughly $1 trillion in interest payments a year.
Right.
$1 trillion. Current interest payments on the last Congressional Budget Office was like $400 billion the U.S. was paying. $400 billion just in interest.
Right.
Now it's when this debt rolls over the next few years at these current rates, it's $1 trillion, but the U.S. 10 years like headed towards 4%. It could be higher. So the amount of money printing just required to pay for the interest enters us into a debt spiral that you really just can't get out of. So when you have a lot of people talking about, well, Tom, you know what? Real estate prices are coming down or hard asset prices are coming down. I'm like, hey, man, just stay the course.
Yeah.
Because the long game is this currency is just can't keep its value. It's at this point, it's just math.
That's
They
right.
could play games in the short term. We could play kind of these games and they can say things like they're going to keep interest rates up for a long time. Frank, we're going to keep up rates high for a long time. It's not really possible. The only way they can keep rates up is that if inflation went to like 12%, then you can have 6-7% interest rate and the real rate's still negative. But inflation at 12% just destroys the currency.
I don't know if it was on your show or not, but I remember Greg Foss saying, it's going to be one and done. And he said, it might be two and done, whatever. And I'm like, all right, Greg. And now I'm like, come on.
Is it going to be 20 raises?
Come on, one and done. Let's go. Let's get on with
the next 90 days. What happens
Yeah.
between now and the end of the year is going to decide the fate of the next few years. You know, how bad is it going to be in the next few years? But the thing is, I say this, and if you're new to kind of listening to us, I think if you're positioned in the right ways with the right things, you can navigate all of this. I just want to remind anybody listening to this, like if you're positioned the right way, hanging out with the right people, you get through this. Humans are resilient. I saw my family go through this in the 90s in Croatia. Mm-hmm. You get through it.
Yeah.
So it's, anyway, we started, I don't know how we got here because I want to talk about your beer. How did talk?
It's hard not to bitch and complain about the economy and the politicians when I'm at a table with you. I don't know.
You know what it is? Well, listen, look what everything you've been through with your academy over the last few years.
Yeah.
Trying to keep the lights on. I mean, it's been interesting times and I think, but that's a kind of a testament to humans being resilient. Look, you made it through. You have a great school, a thriving school by the sounds of it. You have a great team.
Like getting back to the sovereign individual, they also said in one of those early chapters that amidst the fall of Rome, and amidst all these bad and dramatic societal changes, which I believe we're fully in the midst of right now, it's only the people that are of exceptional character and bravery that are the ones that are speaking up about what's really happening, right? So surviving as a gym owner, driving by the Dairy Queen that was open and never had to close. They sell you sell poison. Everything you sell is poison for people. Come on, and then the weed shop and then the LCBO go to my gym and clean it, even though it wasn't being used. It was tough, but we survived because we fought like hell. I didn't just sit there going, when is this going to end? I fought like hell. And a lot of people that know me, they know what I mean. We didn't just take this sitting down. And you know what? This is now at this point, it's like, it's about our kids, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. I'm not going to stay at home. You know what I mean? I'm going to do what I have to do.
When did you read The Sovereign Individual? I just feel, dude, you're like an international man of mystery.
No.
You're like a black belt in jiu-jitsu. We're going to talk about launching this beer. You've read The Sovereign Individual. I just wouldn't have pegged you reading The Sovereign Individual.
But I'm a Bitcoiner. You can't be a Bitcoiner and not read the book. Right?
You know, I read that book like in the early 2000s. Can you believe it?
Oh, you did?
And I put it down. And I remember thinking when I read it, this is some important information. Like, I don't really know what to do with this info. I can see all of this happening.
Yeah.
And I was in tech, so I could kind of see it all.
Right.
But Bitcoin wasn't there yet. And I remember putting that book down thinking, I read something really important, and I just really don't know where it fits with me. But I just want to remember. Yeah, and then with the whole Bitcoin era, everybody started talking about it. Right. I reread it.
Right.
I'm like, wow, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I have a degree in international politics, so I read a lot of the classics, and that really, I wanted to go to law school, but I mean, I didn't end up going, but I got this otherwise useless degree in politics that it's very hard to, employ unless you go into like teaching or law or even into politics, I suppose. But what it did was like reading the classics in political philosophy teaches you how to think. And I remember when I was young thinking, oh, history, everyone says you need to know history because you'll be doomed to repeat it, but it's not that important. It's really important. Now that I'm older, now that we've lived through what we just lived through the last 3 years, you have to know history because you have to see the warning signs when government's going off the rails the way they have been. And it's vital. So, this was Bitcoin, the sovereign individual. It's all part of it, It's all part of
you're right.
Understanding society and
the
government.
premise, if you haven't read the book, the premise is that a lot of the centralization around everything, nation states, government, money, communication, basically everything kind of disintegrates with the evolution of the information age, and that a digital decentralized money will emerge. So a lot of what is written in that book just feels like prophecy because that book was written well before a lot of the things that we're seeing today happened. And you're just kind of reminding me, I didn't expect to get on this thing, but the warning signs, I think, when you say we're doing it for the children, you're talking about some of this stuff. I think when the government of Canada can kind of flippantly freeze people's bank accounts, I didn't expect to get into this. To me, whether you supported that or didn't support that, that is a blatant sign that there is something wrong with the form of democracy that we're practicing here in Canada. And some people, I know some Canadians were for that and supported that. And I really think that it's because they don't have a good grasp of history.
Yeah.
And that's why I think what you're saying around history and philosophy and political science and, some of that education just taught you or gave you a framework to think. It's important. And you need to know history because what we're seeing now without that type of context, you can just kind of wash it off. You could just kind of brush it off and say, it's not a big deal. But when you know history, you don't really like seeing these are signposts that you don't want to see. Anyway, I didn't mean to pull us into that.
I understand the reference. To be honest, like nobody broke any laws and they were punished. Like some people were really destroyed by the freezing of the bank accounts and stuff like that. But I mean, let's look at it. Let's even take the controversy out of this. When was the last time you heard our government talk about economics that wasn't phrased in some sort of relief or stimulus phraseology? Everything that I hear in economic talks from the government is just about like what we're going to do for you. Nobody talks about what created this, what's perpetuating this, what creates inflation. You're not even allowed to talk about that anymore. You can't talk about, you're going to get, in some form or fashion, you're going to get censored or censured if you say that printing of money and unnecessarily welfare perpetuates the devaluation of currency. There's a lot of people out there that will laugh at you, punish you for saying that.
They'll say you're against the Canadian dollar.
Yeah, but when have we ever heard the government recently talk about, how economics work? Why can't we talk about that? They
don't know, Frank.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't know.
You think they don't know?
I think they don't know.
They don't know.
I think they don't know.
These are basic supply and demand principles.
Yeah. Why don't we have a national energy plan?
Yeah.
right now? Like why in 2022 with what's going on in the world, why are our leaders of this country at all levels not talking about a national energy plan? Frank.
Because it's bad for the environment. So we're going to get the oil from countries that don't have any environmental
I think
policy.
the U.S. had sanctions on Venezuela. I think they just lifted the sanctions so they can get oil from Venezuela because oil from America is bad because of the climate. But oil from Venezuela...
Tom, everybody's going to they're going to turn this podcast off.
Well, it's not like we have all the answers. We're just kind of looking at the world going, what is happening?
What is happening?
What is happening? Some of this doesn't make sense. Anyway,
Somebody help us.
Help us.
We need a superhero.
But how do you, what I just really admire about you is you jump into something. Anyone I think who has the discipline, mental and physical discipline to go through and get a black belt like you have, tells me a lot about the person. But then you kind of jumped into all these wonderful things like real estate. You've jumped into podcasting. Now you're about to launch this beer. You got to tell us.
The beer is launched, yeah. But
sorry.
All this was, look, I mean, I come up here and I always give you guys proper credit. A lot of this started with real estate, started with Rockstar, and the your life, your terms is, whatever you think of catchphrases and this and that. And like a lot of people say, oh, your life, your terms, ha, 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 whatever. But like, it's all real and it's all true. And you guys are the ones that got me thinking completely differently. And it's scary to be an entrepreneur, right? I remember right before COVID, my gym was on fire. And I'm like driving down the road, Tom, and I'm like thinking, this is like a dream life. What on earth? Like, because I'm a bit of a pessimist, right? I'm trying to think, like, what on earth could ever take this away, these good times? I had a young daughter, wife that I love.
It would have to be something big. Like, nothing could really take it down.
What's going to happen? Like, how? I think we're good. I think we're going to make it.
Oh, my God.
Honest to God,
2 months later, the whole world shuts down. Everybody is at home.
This was in 2019. I had recently moved and upgraded my gym. My expenses were 7-fold increase from my old facility because we were getting so many people. Everyone was kicking each other in the head. There's no space. And then 6 weeks later into the new space, I ordered a whole new project in there because we still needed more space. That was, I think, January 2019. Right.
Okay, so you got a good year. You got a good year and a bit.
No, we didn't. We moved in November. We moved to that space 2019. 6 weeks later, I did the project.
November 2019.
Yeah. By March, we had our materials crossing the ocean by March, by the time everything was closed. And we had to finish our renovations when we were closed. But contractors were allowed in the gym, just not athletes. So, again, rough 2 years. This September and October, unbelievable.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Unbelievable. So it's good to see. It's good to see people back and at it, and I think. So
where does the idea from? Tell us the story of this. How does the beer get started? Where does this come from?
Yeah, I was reflecting on entrepreneurship the other day, and like, I think a lot of people have an idea of like, you get an idea, you work it, you succeed, and. And like my wife at home sometimes asks me, where are you going today? I'm going here. Well, why are you going there? And I think like entrepreneurship is about taking the meeting, is about like going around and doing things that you think are benign become part of your job. Like you got to get out of your house. You have to get with other people, even if it's for a lunch or a podcast or something, because you end up meeting people. And I had a friend that I met him when we were selling our wine app back in the day.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And we stayed loosely in touch, not very much, but he came to my gym one time. Anyways, long story short, he has a huge brewery in Niagara, and I wanted to help him, so I connected him to some investors that I had met in my previous, corporate life, and we hit the road together and tried to raise money together for his dream. And that gesture, I think he appreciated. And then we did a podcast episode with a guy named Julian Kalka, who's owner of a big lodge in Northwestern Ontario. And the lodges, those tourism, fishing, hunting lodges got destroyed. I thought I got hit hard. He had a beautiful lodge. He was crushing it. They tore their beautiful lodge down and put a beautiful, enormous lodge up the year before COVID happened. So we had a big, bitch fest on my podcast, crying in our soup. And I mean, you think the first 10 minutes of this podcast was bad. Holy cow. It was really bad, right? Because it was my show. And I'm like, you don't like it, don't listen. Okay. You can hear my partner squirming in his chair. And, but what we talked about in that episode was like when the boat ramps were closed. And we talked about the Canadian national fabric, I said, is sewn together with anglers and hunters. And I really believe that because fishing and hunting is a huge part of our culture. And anglers and hunters are amazing people, And
so sorry, the boat ramps were closed because of COVID?
Yeah, they closed a lot of the boat
I don't think
ramps.
I knew that.
Yeah, so you couldn't go on a boat, right? Because COVID's in your boat.
Yeah.
Can't go in your boat.
In the fresh air.
In the
middle of the lake.
The vitamin D, of course.
In the middle of the lake. Sorry.
The vitamin D, the sun.
So they closed. So that was a sign to you?
Well, I mean, what I said in the show was like, we don't know how long these restrictions are going to be. If we have even if we have one generation of kids that skips these, cherished and valued experiences, they're not going to grow up to be guys like me who are passing these Canadian traditions on to their kids. They're going to be detached. And I think it's really important that, as Canadians, we remember who we are. And again, these are noble pastimes. These are good life skills. There's a million reasons you should learn to fish or hunt. And,
and you say that, sorry, I just can't help, but you say that those years are robbed from people. And I just think also it felt like it was taking away the value people were putting on critical thinking. I feel like during that era, if you thought critically about what was going on, you were dismissed or you were easily labeled as an outcast. And it teaches a society, and it can teach, unfortunately, a younger generation, if they don't have the proper role models, that critical thinking or challenging the status quo is not to be accepted, because then you are just labeled in one category of society. And not only do we need people outside and fishing and hunters, and we need the ability to think freely and to think critically. It's both of those things together.
I think your point is the overarching point to all of this, and everything falls underneath it. I think that your point is
it breeds a population that to me is, I don't know if the right word is like docile, like it breeds a population that kind of just goes with things. And back to your Sovereign Individual book and the fall of the Roman Empire, if you can't think critically and don't have the historical context to do it in, you can't see what's happening right in front of you right now. And it's hard then to prepare. And there's an underlying angst in the society where they know they're not saving. Everyone's working hard, knowing they're not getting ahead. It just breeds this kind of uncomfortable unease in the community. And it doesn't have to be that way. I feel like if you at least know what's going on, it may not be great once you peel back the covers and you see how the economy's working. But then at least you can plan, and you feel like you can set yourself up for a future that you can kind of thrive in. Frank, you're bringing this out. You're obviously bringing this out. I didn't mean to talk about this.
That's okay. I've had a realization this year too. Like, I'm really trying to, like, you have kids, everything changes, right? So, I mean, I look at young kids like in high school or coming out of university, like your son's age, right? And it's like, your son's lucky, to have you as a father, right? Like,
we'll see, lucky or unlucky. It's too early to call it, Frank.
Honestly, Tom, so many hard lessons learned by your family, right? A lot of hard lessons, I'm sure, learned by yourself, but coming out on the other side of success. But a lot of kids are looking down the barrel of the gun of life saying, how the heck would I ever afford a house or a family? Like, I try to emphasize with these kids, because it's like, how do you?
It's funny you say that. My son's actually.
It's really important, because then you get these vulture politicians come in and say, we're going to give you things, and this is why we're here now. And it's important for us to empathize with the kids and the youth, and it's extremely important for them to create an awareness as to how we got here, because the government is not going to solve your problems. Not in your generation, probably not in the next generation. And that's important. And without empathy, we're just going to be fighting with each other, right?
Yeah, empathy. You're right. And it's so funny you say that. My son is working on behalf of an investor right now to find him a tenant on a new property they purchased, and he was running the income on someone who had a young guy who was out of university, had a good job at one of the banks. And the guy was telling him, "Hey, they're making me work from home. I thought I was going to get to go in." He wanted to go into the office, but no, they're telling me I have to work from home. I want a little bit bigger place because I'm kind of stuck in a really tiny place. I want to rent this house out, but it's going to be tight. And the guy made what Aiden had believed was a really strong income. But then when they broke it down and looked at how much rent was, Aiden was shocked. He's like, "Dad, this guy went to university. He's got what I would have assumed." Pretty good job. Aiden knows better just because of some of the brainwashing that maybe I put him through. But the income is barely enough to pay for rent. Never mind buy a house.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But to tie everything in to the first, the origin of this discussion, this gentleman who had since then gotten his beer operation up and running, was listening to this episode and it struck a chord and he approached us for this project. And of course, he does contract brewing for his own label, for other labels. But, he looked at us and said, I want to work with you guys. I love what you're doing. And also, I think it helped that we have a pretty big fan base, that we have a market established, right? And any new venture, when you're selling projects, the big hurdle is marketing. We had our marketing really well running, right, because of the show. So we have our next milestone, I think, is 250,000 downloads for the show. A lot of listeners, a lot of really engaged listeners. We get a lot of emails and a lot of messages every day.
Name the show so that
Ugly Pike Podcast. If you don't fish, you're gonna hate it. But it's Ugly Pike Podcast.
Ugly Pike
Podcast, and the beer is Ugly Pike Pilsner, Ugly Pike Brewing Company. And you know what?
Yeah, pull it out. Pull it out.
All right. So if you're not watching the video, I've got my cooler. We're gonna get some of our prototype glasses.
You're serious when the Yeti cooler comes out. It's serious business.
I don't even really drink, but I do now. All right, so
Whoa.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
Whoa! I got some plastic cups. You got the real deal. Oh, there we go.
So if you look at the back, I don't know if you can read that. I certainly can't.
Oh, I can't right now.
Yeah. No. Well, yada yada yada. Yeah. It talks basically.
I love the front.
Big picture on front. Big fishy picture. On the back, it talks about the messaging about preserving great Canadian traditions, basically. And then we talk about how the beer is, as anglers and hunters, I'm going to pour a little bit in every glass. I want you to give a feel and about like our approach to preserving and respecting nature and stuff. This beer is out of a brand new facility. So 60% less energy and cleaning. We're very efficient with our technology. And the spent grains go to Ontario farms to help feed the animals. So a good recycle component.
So when you brew beer, the spent grains can be used. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And
we don't know if the cows like what they're eating, but they don't complain.
Where's the beer brewed? Where is it?
St. Catharines.
St. Catharines.
Yep.
So local beer.
Yep.
Which one am I having?
Well, you know what? I'll sip this one because this is a normal glass.
Yeah,
I want you to have some of the fancy glasses and just tell me how it feels and cheers.
Yeah, cheers, dude. Congrats on
What's your cheers in Croatian?
Živeli.
Živeli?
Yeah.
Let's do it. 10 a.m. beers.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice clean beer.
It's a nice clean beer.
So what's the process like when you're developing a beer?
Yeah,
just
fun.
Working with your partner there.
My partner lives in Riyadh.
Oh, got it.
My podcast partner lives in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So he's a developer, an architect out there.
Did he just move there recently? Was he always?
No, when we started the show, he was here. We had our studio, but about 5 years ago, he went back. He's been working in the Middle East for a long time.
Okay,
but he did a kind of a commute where he would go for months at a time. But then they're like, "We need you." He builds massive, transformation projects. It's really amazing.
So when you get this idea, then you start testing different how does it work?
Yeah.
Formulations for the beer?
Yeah. So, I say what we want. And then what happens is what really happened was I went into the brewery and we had, maybe 7 or 8 different generic.
It's really nice.
It's nice, eh?
Yeah.
Like
I don't even like beer.
Okay.
So someone's going to say, I'm
We
feeding
get this
the line.
all the time. And so what we wanted to do was create something that's like, I don't like craft beer.
Yeah.
I say it gives me tumors. If I have 1 or 2 craft beers, I have such bad headaches, I got to take a nap. I hate craft. I don't like the heavy hop. And what I said was we want flavor, but we want to go to the hop and then we want to back right off. So this takes you right there and then it kind of backs off. And it's like, wow, this is really crisp, right? And but what we did was we had 7 or 8 trials. We picked 2. I did mass taste testing. I went out into the community, people I trust that have restaurants and good palates, and people I know. We narrowed it down to the 1, and then we did 3 brewing revolutions with that. And I gave feedback after every one until we got it the way I wanted it. The credit to the brewmaster over at Dragon Brewing and Wine in St. Catharines. Everything I said I wanted with every new iteration, they nailed. I don't know how they did it with such fine tune, but they just crushed it. And this is exactly what we wanted. So it's really getting a lot of great reception, feedback.
Okay, so
sales are
once
strong.
so where is it available now, and how did you get into those places?
So if
I'm
you
just
go
thinking
to,
for someone else listening, like,
Yeah.
how does an entrepreneur like you get this going?
well,
But tell everyone where it's available now.
www.uglypikebrewing.com. You can have it delivered right to your doorstep. Shipping is actually surprisingly pretty cheap. So you can grab it there. And then we are being populated in 100 LCBO stores across Ontario right now. Our hopes and expectations is that in short time, we'll be in all the stores, but we can't announce that yet. And we're also making a deal with a major supermarket chain across Ontario, and we're going to be in a position to announce that before the end of the year.
And this is just door knocking at the LCBO? Like, how did you get the conversation going?
No, because we have my friend who built his brewery. He really helped.
Okay, so he had a connection. You start the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the product had to stand on its own 2 feet. We had to submit to taste testing, and we did. And they loved our beer, and they loved our messaging, and they loved the fact that it was medium bodied, but still, doesn't just, you don't make a face because you got that aftertaste. It just won't leave your head after.
And then grocery stores the same way. You had some sort of someone to open a door somewhere.
Yes, we had someone to open a door somewhere.
Okay.
But this gets back to what I was saying earlier about take the meeting, meet the guy, meet the girl. You're never gonna know. Help people. If you're in a position to help somebody, help them. And then this guy helps us now.
Yeah,
we still help him now. Now it's a partnership. It's not. It's a partnership. If we've got a line on something that's going to help him, we bring it to him, and vice versa. This is, to me, in my experience, this is what entrepreneurship is about, right? It's about building your network and just working hard and just helping each other, and it's working out pretty well for us right now.
What have been some of the challenges? I guess, did you have to learn about inventory? Just kind of managing the supply of the beer for the orders.
To be honest, the challenges were understanding sales and marketing for this industry, which is a whole new industry for me, and just understanding how the LCBO works, how to sell into a restaurant, how to talk to a bar, what you can offer them, what they want to hear and what they don't want to hear. Right. So in my old sales job, I used to sell sports fields. I knew exactly what the client needed to hear and wanted to hear.
This was like you were selling turf.
I was selling turf,
Yeah.
and I knew exactly what people wanted and what their needs were, what their pain points were, right? Pain points are huge in sales. If you understand pain points, you know what? You're going to be really ahead of the game. And so that's, to me, it's been my biggest challenge because, I'm a sales guy. And so, I'm cold calling restaurants in cottage country. My mornings are cold calling.
The name of this beer alone just must be a perfect fit for
It's pretty cool, yeah. Ugly Pike, we only fish for muskie, right? Muskie is the apex predator. It's the hardest fish to catch. The fish to 10,000 cast. The name muskellunge, when you translate it back from Ojibwe into English, is Ugly Pike. So the good news is that pike fishing is very popular in Europe, and so we've had some interest from Europe. Our team has already been over in Europe scouting locations for a new brewery project.
Come on.
And probably a distillery project. We want to do a whiskey line down the road. So yeah, we're looking to we've got a distributor interested in Finland because culturally this aligns very closely with them. So we've been approached by.
What about the fishing community it doesn't have to be just fishermen, obviously, but I'm just thinking, is that low hanging fruit in the U.S.?
It's huge. And the problem is, I'm a face-to-face guy. I need to get down there.
Yeah, got it.
in the last little
it's been
while,
tough
it's
to
been
travel.
tough to travel, right? So as things are easing, the first thing on my list is get down to the U.S. because I have some contacts, some investors, some people from the beer business down there that want a very serious take a look at this. And I think we can do some great things because we have in the Midwest, we have a very strong presence with our show. And we're connected to some of the highest profile media fishermen that love us. And that we do favors for having them on our show and share and like their stuff and promote their stuff. And I think a lot of them are looking to help us back and pay us back.
And so just to circle back to this, I want to ask you something. There's a big fishing controversy going on. What's this?
Oh my God.
I don't even follow fishing. And all of a sudden my YouTube feed.
Don't forget this one too.
We
got you.
both?
I want you to put both in your hand and let me know what
I'll
glass you
finish
use
this
better.
one. But yeah, can you just tell everyone what's going on? I saw somebody forward me a YouTube video of some guy at some competition just getting yelled at. I guess.
I'm surprised you didn't get killed.
Yeah. So can you just walk us?
It was the professional walleye tour. So they're walleye fishermen, and they were like, I don't know if they were performing surgery on the fish or if they were just shoving weights down the fish's throat, but they were putting giant weights into these fish. And also, which I found weird, was they were stuffing the fish with other fillets of fish.
I couldn't figure out why they were doing that.
They're stupid.
Yeah.
If you're putting a lead weight in a fish, do you really need the fillet?
Was that just to cover it up in case somebody kind of opened the fish's mouth so big you couldn't see the lead?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I never thought of that. Maybe they're smarter than I am. But, the long and the short of it, these guys won $300,000 last year on the tour.
No,
or
that
maybe it was
much.
last year or maybe historically. And they were
So people think they were cheating the whole time.
Yeah. $150,000 boat they got too, stuff like that. So like those tours, those fishing tours, that's serious money.
But when you're out there fishing, nobody's supervising the catch to when the fish is weighed or whatever. So like how would they?
Some of them have marshals, but it depends on how big the water is and how big the entries are. Because like Ugly Pike Pilsner just sponsored the Muskie Cup up in Nestor Falls. Muskie Cup is if you guys go to our website, you can see under news or whatever the tab. We sponsored the Muskie Cup, and like the Muskie Cup is the Stanley Cup but carved out of wood with a big fish burned onto it, right?
Awesome.
And the winners are inscribed, right? And then the winners. So this year the winners drank our beer out of the cup. Awesome. It was really great, right? But they're on a huge lake, and they had a lot of entries, and so they couldn't really afford monitor, so they have a video system. Okay. But I don't know. Somehow these guys. You never know. There's a million ways to do it. You can.
Yeah. I guess you're hanging off the side of the boat.
Day before you can catch him, do the surgery at your house, throw him in your live well if nobody's checking. I mean, obviously they had some sort of system, but they got caught. And that video was really interesting because, man, those guys were pissed.
The guy was cutting open the fish down the belly, opening it up. And these big, I guess they were like ovals or the size of little balls.
Yeah.
Solid lead weights that were stuffed in there. I didn't understand. How were they caught? Like, how was the first? Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I didn't know if I was missing that. I'm like, how did they?
What I heard in a lot of those videos were people saying, I don't understand why their fish is heavier because ours are the same size and their fish is 2 pounds heavier. Right. So I think that raised the ire of a few people saying, well, these fish look exactly the same. What's going on? Why are yours so heavy? And
I guess if they've won multiple tournaments, why are they always heavier if they're catching fish at the same size?
So it sounds like these guys got a little greedy.
Did you hear the cheating in chess right now? Somebody put like anal beads or something.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, apparently, and it would vibrate.
Never heard that part.
Maybe I heard it incorrectly, but apparently they were these beads were on some kind of remote control. They would vibrate a certain way, so the person knew how to make a move on the chessboard.
But who's doing the zap?
I don't know. It's
That's
remote,
a fun job.
Remote anal bead zapping to tell you what chess move to make. The world's gay. Frank, we've been talking about how the world's pretty crazy right now.
Yeah, right.
Crazy. The first
God.
class, you know what? I think I like this class.
You do, eh?
I don't know. Well,
So I like the tone of your voice because it's the voice in my head. It's like when I saw that glass, I was like, no. And then I drank out of it, and I'm like, I think so.
Yeah.
Right? It's a little
Something
fancy.
about hold. Yeah.
You got the option, low hold, high hold. Hey, it's lots of fun.
Yeah.
Right?
This, I would say, just looking at this particular glass, this would be the standard choice. Like if I saw this glass for me, I'd be like, yeah, of course, that one or this one. This one, I would think, no. This one would remind me of something maybe I would get in Europe. You know?
Well, they're all Pilsner glasses, right?
Yeah,
so Pilsner is...
Your beer, by the way, is reminding me of... I went to Oktoberfest in Munich.
Oh,
with
cool.
my brother-in-law. Brought my son. He brought his daughter. He wanted his daughter to kind of learn. She turned 16. It was legal there to drink. We went over for Oktoberfest.
Wanted his daughter to learn to drink?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, with him. Yeah. He's like, he's old school Italian, Frank, old school Italian. He's like, hey, listen, if you're he wanted his daughter to have a drinking experience with him by her side. We went there and I just remember drinking the beer and it felt fresh to me.
Cool.
Like, and I feel like I'm getting reminded of that with yours.
This is a fresh batch. It was actually a couple of weeks ago. It was created. So it's and the other thing is too, like there's no high fructose corn syrup. It's all whole ingredients, natural ingredients. There's only 5
There's
ingredients.
corn syrup in beer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Why is there corn syrup in beer?
Don't ask. I have no idea, but there is probably. I just don't know. But the shelf life of this is much longer. It stays fresher much longer too because the ingredients are good ingredients and solid ingredients. So yeah, it tastes fresh and it's very European.
So how are you managing things now? Like you have the academy, you have this, you're running, you're doing podcasts, you fish, you do all these things. How are you? You have a family? Like how are you? What's your time management?
Still do consulting in my turf. A little bit of consulting.
So what is your time management like? I'd imagine it's like a disaster trying to keep up with everything. How are we? What strategies? What are you doing to focus on things? How are you prioritizing?
I'm pretty regimented. Like I mornings are for beer, and for beer business. I don't drink in the morning. I barely ever drink. And then when 2:00 comes around, I start lesson plan every day for jiu-jitsu, even though I know the stuff and like I write everything down that I'm teaching.
That's for the next day?
It's for that day.
Oh, that day.
Yeah, because I do my 4 to 6 year old kids class, then I do my 6 to 11 year old kids class, then I do my adult basic class, then I do my adult advanced class, and then I train. So the days of the week where I have that schedule, it's beer in the morning, wake up with my kids in the that's obviously the priority. Like it's the best thing about being an entrepreneur.
How old are they now?
One's about to turn 1 year and the other's 5 years old.
Yeah.
So like it's very important that when they come downstairs that they see me. So that's really important. And then they start getting the breakfast, all that stuff. I'm on the computer, a lot of beer stuff, and then like I said, 2:00 everything shuts off. Jiu-jitsu takes over, and then by 4:00 I'm at the gym. So and then I'm home around 9:00. And that's 2 days a week that happens.
Got it.
And then I have coaches that teach the other 2 days. And then on Friday, we have our competition team training. So that kind of runs itself. And then on the weekends, I'm at the gym in the mornings.
How many podcasts do you release a month?
Only 2.
Okay, so 2 podcasts.
And when my partner moves back, we're going to up that. But
strictly scheduled, or just when you have a guest booked, doesn't matter? Or is that just set in your calendar?
We have to meet our publication schedule, and how we meet that. What we usually do, Tom, is we usually do 1 mega episode and we cut it into 2 parts.
Okay.
So we're only recording once a month.
What do you mean your publication schedule? That's something you guys
We want 2 episodes.
Yeah, okay. So that's something you've set for yourself.
Yeah, and it's important. It's important to hit those because we don't have to. You understand? Like as an entrepreneur,
yeah,
it's important that we continue to meet these deadlines even though we don't have anybody to answer to. But we expect that once we're just redoing our pitch deck right now because we want to incorporate the beer and everything we've done with the beer. And once that deck is done, we're going to go hard at sponsors. And it's going to matter that we can say for 4 years, we kept our schedule. We only missed, twice, death. It was usually death in the family or someone had COVID. Those were the 2, excuses. The one I couldn't even talk to the one. So in fact, the one episode 100, you can hear the 3 guys on the episode. We were all in the same room, actually in real time giving each other COVID-19.
Good.
We all left that session. We all had
You're all
COVID.
close friends. Oh, jeez.
So you hear the odd little cough, and then of course it was
oh boy,
it was a disaster after that. But we're very, very regimented, and my partner is an esteemed professional, and we have expectations, and getting lazy is not going to get us where we want to be.
You know what I find, if I look at most entrepreneurs that I know, they have an uncanny ability to prioritize what's important and to dismiss what's not important. Even though we all let things into our lives that are not important.
Yeah.
I find entrepreneurs who actually get shit done have this weird ability to almost put blinders on and say, hey, we're going to get this podcast out twice a month, and that is going to happen. I remember when we were starting this business, I had to write a blog post every Thursday morning and had to send out this weekly email every Thursday morning. And even if my Thursday was completely booked, it just meant I had to get up earlier to do it.
Right.
There was just absolutely no excuses. And nobody was over our heads saying you had to do it, but we knew that was a long-term success tool for us to get this out.
Yeah.
And there would just be no exception. So I think what you're saying is that, you're just kind of hard on yourself. And I think a lot of people they struggle with prioritizing the right or the things that will get them to where they want to be in life. They kind of let those things, they get distracted and they don't focus on the right things. And I find that achieving things isn't that difficult if you just super focus on the thing, the item that will get you there. I'm not making much sense. I think it's the beer.
It's a muscle.
Frank, it's the beer. It's 10 a.m. I haven't had breakfast, and now I'm on my second glass of beer. I know it's one can. It's going to take me out. One can of beer is going to take me out. Right?
It's a muscle that you flex, right? Like one of the hard lessons I learned last year was, as an investor, is taking money out. Right, that's a muscle you have to flex. Like, I'm going to leave it in because if I leave it in, I'm going to have all this money. I learned some hard lessons.
What do you mean? What do you mean? You just felt it was bad. You felt bad that you were taking something.
No,
from
I
the
didn't feel
business?
bad. I was greedy.
Oh, okay.
I don't need the money right now. I'm going to leave it in because I get more later. But I learned that as an investor, taking that money out is a discipline, is a muscle that you have to flex, and you have to learn how to flex that muscle. When you get profit, take some of the profit out.
Because you thought if you left it in, the business would make even more money.
I'm talking in this case specifically with my investments into crypto last year, because we were seeing great returns until we weren't. And now I wish, in hindsight, that I had listened to the people that were taking profits and I wish that I had taken some, because I wouldn't have lost some of the money I did last year. But I mean, I got a really good education on it, and and I applied it this year with my Graybrook stuff, because I've had some projects come in for renewal and maturation, and they said, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I'm going to put it all back." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, I'm going to put 80% back." And I did that. I said, "I'm going to give you 80% of what I made. I'm going to let
take
the other
20%.
Take the 20 and let it sit in the account for now." I didn't want to do it, but I had to learn. I had to employ the lesson that I learned the following year, but.
I think when the economy hits different periods, liquidity is important in your own life. So I think it's super important to have some liquid cash at times. Like, I don't know if you remember,
especially right now.
I don't know if you remember over the years, we would put up this like 3-bucket strategy where like you should have cash, you'd have like long-term savings.
We
gold.
wrote it on the paper. The last time I was in here, you wrote.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because I asked you, I had a property I wanted to sell, and I'm like, should I sell it?
Oh yeah.
And you went into that spiel. Yeah. Property's still for sale if anyone's listening. Niagara on the Lake, great cottage, amazing property for sale. I'm in a cash position right now.
Yeah, got it.
Even though it's real estate, and I believe in real estate, but I have other real estate.
Sure.
I want cash right now because I know the market's about to take a giant dump.
It seems like the next 3 months. So we're recording this. What is it? Early October, and the next 3 months, I really feel this is it. We're in the storm.
The blood and guts.
This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This feels like I haven't felt like this in a real estate market, since the 90s when our family kind of really went through it, when you're kind of staring down the barrel a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I say that, and if you're holding property and you're getting around, this doesn't even apply. This is not a big deal. It's just if somebody's selling a property and absolutely needs to. We know a few people who really need to sell real estate right now, and they're in a tight jam. It's tough.
Yeah.
And you ideally don't get yourselves in those situations, but I mean, it's life, and that happens. But if you can survive through this, the other side of it will be fine.
And if you can invest, like I want to cash.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We have some investors now that have some cash, and they're picking up really good deals. Some of them right in Niagara, where they're picking up properties.
Real estate deals.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. One a recent one that comes to mind was listed. They were looking at this property for a while. They could turn it into a duplex, but it's large enough that they can actually make it into a triplex. And they were able to pick the property up for $300,000 less than a few months ago. A person needed to sell.
Yeah.
And so they were able to get it. And those deals aren't everywhere, but we never saw those a couple of years ago.
I'm talking specifically about equities and stocks and stuff like that, because I think there's going to be some really great buys this year. I think the market's going to have a huge downturn, and I think there's going to be some generational opportunities to buy into some of these stocks that I've been, looking at in some of these sectors.
You're getting pretty serious. Yeah, you got a serious look on your face.
Well, I mean, like I said, I've got my real estate bucket. God knows I have my crypto bucket.
Still a bucket? It's still there?
It's leaking a little bit, but it's holding together.
Was that a tear that just came from your
eye? I don't know, Tom. I mean, the more I see what's going on, to be quite honest with you, I've never been more confident in the future of something like Bitcoin, like the alts, like we talked about earlier.
Oh, I thought you were going to say gold. I thought what you were going to say, hey, I'm gold.
I love Peter Schiff.
He's a smart guy.
I gave a lot of money to Euro Pacific Capital.
Did you?
I did.
Yeah.
Because I love Peter Schiff. Yeah. This was before Bitcoin, right? And I'm like, I love this. This was after Occupy Wall Street when he did all those interviews.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to give this guy money. Yeah. Right. And then, so I went to Toronto. Since they sold that bank, they sold the services to another bank called Echelon Wealth Partners. So they have a good part of my stock portfolio that they manage for me. But Peter Schiff was the one who initially brought me to the table there because I love the guy. I think he's great.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
The fact that he can't connect the dots to Bitcoin just continues to baffle me.
Probably
He must. He must. You can't argue for gold and just not understand Bitcoin.
Yeah, but, it's we're almost on the same team, but he sells gold. So, he's got to do what he's got to do, and he does it really well, and he does it in a way that is it's real easy to hate people these days that are against you, ideologically, but I just want to have a drink with the guy and just pat him on the back. Just love him.
Yeah, smart guy.
You gotta have him on it.
Yeah. I don't know. We've never reached out.
Breedlove coming in? Or?
Yeah, we have him actually next week.
Remote?
Remote. I don't know. I never know where he's been on before. He's always in a different part of the world.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorites, John Vallis, is booked to come on again. I really like talking to John Vallis. We get it. I looked back on some of the stats on the podcast, and his podcast just had an incredible amount of listens. I was shocked.
Doubt it. I heard you say on a previous one, I think it was the Canadian Bitcoin. I love that episode, the Canadian Bitcoin.
They're a good time.
I love those guys. Those
Joey
guys
and Len. Yeah.
There's going to be some downtime. There's going to be some significant downtime. That part made me laugh so hard. So that's what I tell my wife after I'm drinking the next day. There's going to be some downtime.
There's just on that note, I just connected someone who listens to the podcast. You might be listening to this particular episode. Built a building in Windsor, 13-unit renoed it. Is mining Bitcoin in the mechanical room. From the heat of the Bitcoiner, he's heating the water, so everybody gets almost free water. He's got solar panels on the roof where he's using that energy for the building and also for the mining. He's calling it the first Bitcoin building in the world. And he's trying to get out. So I kind of shared his story around to some of the Bitcoiners that I know, and we'll see if we hear him. And he's going to come on the podcast. He's going to come on, I think, in November sometime.
Right on.
Yeah, what he's done there is just kind of completely incredible. He's got Bitcoin artwork through the building. He's got all the screens kind of showing some stuff. We'll
Do you listen to Pomp?
I haven't for whatever reason, a long time. I don't know.
He's like my number one right now. I like.
Yeah. Okay. He's doing good stuff. I don't even know what he's talking about.
He's just a good blend of macroeconomic talks and with the Bitcoin undertones are always there. But I just found myself gravitating to his podcast. I like it.
So what's in your future now? You're going to promote Ugly Pike. That's going to be something. We'll see where Ugly Pike goes.
Well, I think we can, international expansion. I think and. Also like positioning this as, I hate using the word lifestyle brand, but we're doing a lot of, I got a really great email the other day and a guy, it was an older guy. He's like in his 70s or whatever, 70 years old. And he talked about all the things that were of value to him by listening to the show. And none of them had to do with fishing. He talked about, like, when you talk about jiu-jitsu and entrepreneurship, inspires me, and this is why. And we had this really weird double episode, where we were at a lodge and we just turned the mics on and basically drinking with these fishermen, and it was a total shit show. And the one fisherman was a girl, and he said, that episode helped me understand how to relate to my grandkids a little easier, and they're my granddaughters, and how to talk to them, and maybe some of the things that they're thinking. And it was really touching because, like, as we get more viewership, people don't necessarily care if we talk about fishing 100% of the time. Now we have this beer, And these people, I think a lot of people are being inspired by watching us kind of grow.
Awesome.
And of course, you know, one of the reasons why I'm pushing so hard with this brand is that so many people told me I couldn't do it. You're never going to make money in fishing. You know, my father, don't ever take jiu-jitsu. It's never going to do anything for you. What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time?
Really?
Yeah. I love when people say that kind of stuff.
So what is your self-talk in that moment? You just take that as a challenge?
It was hard. It was my father was a super successful lawyer.
Yeah.
Right. And I just loved it so much. I didn't quite care what he had to say at that point. And even though I was young and even though I was new to jiu-jitsu, I don't know, man.
Yeah, is your relationship with your father, is he still around?
No, he died 2.5 years ago.
Did he see your academy?
Yeah.
And what did he say?
My father wasn't the type to like gush and pat you on the back. You know what I mean?
I know the type. Yeah.
No, he wasn't. It wasn't quite like that. I mean, I'm sure he was happy and proud and all that stuff, but he wasn't the outward kind of guy, kind of type. So, but he did talk me out of going to law school, you know. So it's funny. The lawyers,
even though he was super successful.
Yeah, but the lawyers say the businessmen all have all the money, and the businessmen say the lawyers all have all the money. So
that sounds accurate.
You know what I mean?
Yes, that sounds completely accurate.
So
Holy smokes.
You know what? But I mean, I quickly realized, you know, and was enabled, of course, by you guys that you know, it's more about time. And creating time for yourself, and it's cliche to say do the things you love, but like the ultimate challenge to me has been taking these two things that I love and turning them into big hits, not just eking a living out, but turning them into big hits. So
if somebody has an idea and they're trying to figure out if they should pursue it or not, some of I think the inner thoughts that you have can work against you. What is your self-talk like? Like when you wanted to launch Ugly Pike, are you just telling yourself like, of course this is going to happen? Of course I can make this happen?
No.
Because you've had some successes now, so it might be easier to talk that way.
It's not. It's because you know the work involved. You know it's a super heavy lift. I'm a pragmatist. You know, the guy who owns our brewery, he's always, you know, and I have a really good buddy of mine, a very good friend of mine. His name's Joe Panessa. He's like a brother to me and a mentor. And, you know, I love the guy. And these guys are always trying to tell me to be a little more positive because I'm just a super pragmatist. And like, I was in corporate sales for 17 years and I know that you don't have the money until you have the money. Right. And so like, oh, I made a sale. Yeah. Great deal. I'm not popping those champagne corks like a lot of other
check
people.
Clears.
Yeah.
And
to me, it's like there's no good news until until we see the money. There's no.
Okay, so is that so you don't get too high, but do you prevent yourself from getting too low as well?
That's probably my Achilles heel.
What's that?
Is being too much of a pragmatist to the point where
you'll drive yourself into the ground.
It can be negative, at times. There's no doubt. People have told me. But I mean, I live in an ultra real environment. You know, jiu-jitsu is ultra real. You want to know the reality of you as a bag of flesh and blood and bones. You want to know where you stand in this world when everything is stripped away. Go to jiu-jitsu because that's the ultimate.
Sure.
That's the ultimate reality.
Jeez.
You want to try to set a goal that's very difficult. Try musky fishing, the fish of 10,000 casts. Nobody does it because it's impossible because you never catch anything. But to get good at something like that, you know, these are extremely difficult things to do because there's not a lot of the risk reward, not risk reward, but the peaks and valleys. The valleys are very deep.
How do you pull yourself out of a valley, or do you need to? You don't get.
Got to keep going because you're going to get better.
So that's your self-talk. If you're not feeling it, just next step, next thing, next day, keep going.
Our logo's the bull at the club. You know, put your head down and go. Right. Our logo. That's our logo, and you know, you gotta work your. Life has peaks and valleys. If you can't navigate that, you know, you're going to have a really tough time.
One of the mental strategies I try to share with my own kids is that you can't decide what's good or bad today. You need to look back on it 6 months, a year, 6 years later. So if something you think is negative today, it might serve you so well. That negative action today might propel you to the best thing you've ever experienced in life. So to think that something is a negative in your life, you're not allowed to judge it in the moment. So never
That's
get
very
too
smart,
high,
yeah.
never get too low. Life is a perfect balance. And if something great happens to you, then now this might sound slightly negative, but never celebrate it too much. You don't know.
Yeah.
Stay even.
Yeah.
You don't know what that brings.
The samurais used to say, you never, and the good fighters too, you'll see like the fighters I like aren't the ones that go crazy after they win. The samurai used to say, you never know when you're not going to have your next victory. You know what I mean? You never know when it's going to be your head on the floor.
Yeah.
So you don't celebrate those victories. You know what I mean?
So in that regard, who's your favorite fighter?
Maybe not in that regard, but
Okay, who's your
if you look at a guy in old school, you look at a guy like Hickson Gracie. When he used to win, there was never any
no celebration.
No, because he was very in tune with the samurai spirit. Like he
knew
it. He embodied it. These days, I like Charles Oliveira because he's just freaking awesome.
Is he going to win against this Khabib's protege guy?
I don't know. It depends on what Charles we see. If we see the Charles that was his first half of his career, he was very inconsistent. We see the Charles that's the second half of his career. He's just like Anderson Silva.
So his
right?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is
incredible, best
elite,
beyond elite.
Who?
There's so many levels to Jiu-Jitsu, okay? And I don't know how many people listening know the community, but like there was just a super fight. Two guys. One guy was Gordon Ryan.
Yeah. I don't even follow it. I watched that fight.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gordon Ryan is doing things that nobody ever thought could be done. He's like winning at the highest levels, and he's bored. He's so good.
This was against that guy Pena or something.
He did. Felipe Pena was before, but at the ADCC super fight, he fought Andre Galvão.
Galvão. That was the guy's name? Okay.
Yeah. Felipe Pena was 2 tournaments ago. Felipe's friend had been murdered the day before the tournament. He tried to get out. It was a big controversy.
Oh, yeah. I remember
right?
that. I actually remember. Yeah.
The real fact of the matter is the guy's completely outmatched. Every single person's outmatched. Gordon Ryan is Wayne Gretzky times 10.
This is because he can solve physical puzzles better than
Who knows? But the point is, so he has this rivalry with a guy named Andre Galvão. Andre Galvão is the all-time ADCC decorated champion. He's won 1 million titles, and this and that. He's got Atos, probably one of the most successful franchises in schools. Just, the guy's just awesome. I've known Andre since he was a brown belt. But Andre also was the guy who kicked the living shit out of me the worst I've ever been handled in my life. I felt like a baby training with him. He killed me.
Just because of his size?
No, he's my size.
No way, really?
He's just good. Yeah. He's got great steroids. Don't get me wrong. He's on all the steroids. But that's not why I lost the way I did. He was just works harder. He's naturally more talented. He just killed me, and I couldn't even formulate thoughts when I was wrestling with him. And Gordon did that to him, right? So like, there's these crazy levels to this, man. It's scary because I can tell you, like, when people come through my gym and they don't really know much, or even if they know a little bit, I don't have a problem with anybody. Anybody. It doesn't matter how big or strong and then, this guy just is bored handling me, and then this guy's bored handling him. It's really scary when you...
Because that fight, it looked like he had his way with it. It didn't look like a tough fight.
Not only that, but he had done his division.
Yeah.
So it's one thing no one's ever done. Usually when you get a super fight, like, you don't do the division too because you're tired, right? You want to be... Your opponent in the super fight didn't do the division. He's sitting there going, let's go. He's fully energized. Gordon did the whole division, and all of his matches were like a minute or whatever they were. I don't even know, but I don't even know how we got in this line of...
Frank, you're one of the good guys, man. I feel fortunate to cross paths, and I have to say something to you. You keep saying, that it's been maybe beneficial in some ways to cross paths, but you having someone like you have trusting us, and you've referred people to us. That is also tons
of people.
Maybe the number one referrer.
The guy from the first story in this podcast who had the talk with his friends about interest rates. That guy's a rock star guy. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to shoehorn that in, but yeah. Anyways,
oh, really?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
But
am I about to get a watch or something? Are you about to hand me a watch? Where's
a gold watch?
A
Bitcoin
mug?
Watch. A sticker. I have a sticker.
Is that a steak knife?
But no, what you don't know is that having someone of your character supporting us the way you have over the years has given us the confidence when you didn't know it to keep going.
That's cool.
Because when we thought, well, if Frank is referring people to us, Frank is a great guy, and Frank is of a certain type of person. If he trusts us with people, it gave us energy to keep going. So I need
really
to thank
cool.
you as well.
I appreciate
mean, it's
that.
a complete two-way street. So
That's cool.
Thank you.
If I had known that back in the day, I would have ran. Oh my God, these guys don't have their shit together.
Yeah. I don't know if we have our shit together today. So hand off. So give us a whole bunch of URLs. The Academy.
Yeah.
How would people find the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy? What's the best
Yeah,
URL?
guys, if you don't live in Niagara but you're coming through town and you train and you want to jump in, just go to any social media, Passador BJJ, or just my name's Frank Ungaro. Just Google my name, whatever. You'll find a million ways to engage at Passador BJJ, at Ugly Pike on Instagram, or uglypikepodcast.com will get you to our beer and everything else.
And uglypikebrewing.com, directly to the beer.
If you just go to Ugly Pike, you can go to Ugly Pike Brewing, but you can also just go to Ugly Pike Podcast. It doesn't matter, or just type in Ugly Pike, but everything leads to the same entity. Also, I have another podcast called Always Be Choking, which is more of a lifestyle podcast. I'm not publishing that on a schedule because since we rolled out the beer, it's just crushing my time. Mm-hmm. But we're still releasing episodes. I have surprisingly high number of downloads for that show for the effort I'm putting. I'm also building a podcast studio in my basement, and so when that's done, I'm going to ramp everything up because we'll probably add a video component and all that stuff.
Awesome,
so,
dude.
Super happy, yeah. Super excited, glad the gym's going, and always happy to come here because I don't know, man. I think we're the same, and that's why this has worked out the way it has. So,
yeah,
guys like us, we're the same.
Thank you.
All right, man.
Talk soon, man.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Terms show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.